Hi, everybody. I thought I would do a live, and seems like a good time. Let me see. So I have my Avoidant Attachment Seminar coming up tomorrow. All the slots for that are booked. You can email to get on the wait list for the next one. I had a question. I always get the question. I even have a podcast. Can you change your attachment style? Do attachment styles change in different relationships? I have 2 podcasts on that topic. But yes, basically it's, are you insecurely attached or are you securely attached? Because if you're insecurely attached, then you can flip-flop between avoidant, preoccupied, not usually fearful avoidant. That one usually stays in all relationships. That's the one that's really linked to childhood trauma. But preoccupied and avoidant are also linked to just not learning positive, trusting things about relationships early in life, right? And just like you would never deny that what you do impacts your kids and they're always watching you and building templates from you, you are doing the same with your parents. And people who lean more avoidant generally tend to say, my childhood was fine. My childhood was great. No problems, but for some reason, women are always upset with me. They're always like kind of crying around me and stuff. And man, women are just dramatic, right? And then the preoccupied people are aware that there was childhood dysfunction, but they've not really processed it and moved on. Now, of course, long term, the goal is for everybody to get to secure attachment. That's what therapy does. Like, you learn why you are how you are, and you work on getting to a place where you increase your confidence, you understand that you're a worthwhile person, you learn how to empathize, and you understand that most of a relationship is 2 people connecting with each other. So secure doesn't just mean that you don't worry if the relationship's going to end, right? Because no avoidants really worry if their relationship's going to end. They're like, well, okay, if it ends, I know there's plenty other fish in the sea. And that's a more avoidant perspective. So sometimes avoidants will say, but I'm secure in the relationship because I don't worry that it's going to end. No, secure means loving, connected, close, able to give and receive empathy. Nobody's pursuing you all the time in a way that you find irritating or annoying. Secure doesn't just mean you know that they're not going to leave you because honestly you're as good as they can get, or you don't really give a shit if they do, or whatever. So that's not secure. Plenty of avoidants feel definitely like they would be fine if the relationship ended, possibly even better if the relationship ended. But that doesn't mean that they have secure attachment. So, and a lot of guys struggle with this when they feel that they were secure in their relationship until the sex went away. And so what actually happens is that they flip then to preoccupied, which is just another type of insecure attachment. So at first, they didn't really trust the woman to open up to her emotionally. They didn't feel like they needed that. Who needs that? Who cares? And so the woman was always upset with them. Well, eventually, so she's the pursuer. They are preoccupied. Then eventually her drive goes away, especially because she feels like, why am I banging my head against the wall with this guy? He doesn't empathize with me. He's not here for me in any real way. And so why should I have sex with him, right? And so at that point, the avoidant guy, whose only way of really connecting, which was not really sufficient for the woman, was sex. It wasn't closeness, it wasn't emotionality, it wasn't vulnerability. So when the sex goes away, then that guy often switches over to preoccupied. And he says, why? This can't relate to my childhood because look, I was different way each time. No, it does. Everything relates to your childhood, same as it does for your kids. What you do with your kids right now is going to predict how they act in intimate relationships later on. And so what you learned, whether you're preoccupied or avoidant or certainly fearful avoidant, is that relationships aren't safe. Sometimes a parent wasn't there for you. Sometimes a parent was too there for you. So they were like always up your ass, micromanaging you. It was all about the parent. So you learned, listen, and that's not the parent's fault. The parent probably got parented worse than that, right? And so you learn that relationships are not warm and they are not close and there's no give and take of vulnerability. So in a securely attached relationship, when, like, for example, if the wife doesn't want to have sex, the guy has good self-esteem internally and he loves her and he wants to connect with her. So he wants sex, but he also loves his wife. And like, that's really important. And so he might think to himself things that have to do with her, like getting into her perspective. Man, is she stressed out? Is she depressed? Is she going through menopause? Like, what's going on with her? I love her. I want to be there for her. Yeah, I'd like to have sex, but the most important thing, obviously, is that I show my wife that I love her. Just same as a securely attached woman, if the guy pulls away, she doesn't like pursue him and like, scream at him and yell at him. She thinks, oh, maybe he's going through something, But remember, securely attached people don't end up with insecurely attached people. At the beginning, a securely attached woman would walk away from an avoidant guy. And a securely attached woman or man would also walk away from a preoccupied attachment person who's always following you around, being jealous and clinging and controlling. Because the thing is, the avoidant and the preoccupied people, they both don't trust relationships. So they go about that in different ways, but it's really the same core thing, is that you don't trust relationships. So the avoidant person says, look at me, I don't need any relationships. And the preoccupied person says, I will be able to control everything this person does, and that's the only way I can get them to love me, is if I'm completely in charge of controlling everything about them, because, again, I don't trust relationships. Because I learned that in my childhood. So the only way that I could do it as the preoccupied person is to control and cling and pout and sulk and demand that they do this or that, or demand that they read endless books on therapy or whatever. And the avoidant person says, I don't need this shit, I'm going to CrossFit, right? So because they think any relationship's going to be bad, because all the people that they've ever attracted have been the same type, right? Which reminds them of home. To feel uncomfortable in a relationship is very familiar for both of these people. And fearful avoidant tend to find each other, and they alternate with chaos and fighting and silent treatment, and just like that's more volatile because you grew up in an abusive or neglectful home. All right, so hopefully that was a useful overview. If anybody has any questions, I'm here to take any questions on attachment. Make sure that you do not do that. Oh, and then of course over time, as I said already, but in case anybody's joining late, the goal is not to just remain insecurely attached and just vacillate in relationship or in stage of relationship from one to the other. The goal is to get to a securely attached relationship. But even more than that, it's to grow in your own self-esteem and your own security, your secure attachment kind of internally. And so frequently when people do go to therapy, they're no longer compatible with the other insecurely attached partner. So like the partner will be jealous or clingy, or they'll be distant and removed. And either way, a person who's learning more about healthy relationships is like, oh, that's all really dysfunctional. And that person's like insecurities and their insecure attachment no longer seems like a game that you can play if you're being true to yourself, right? Because you want to grow into a more authentic and real way of being, and so two securely attached partners in a secure relationship, and it's like about 60-70% of people were raised well enough with enough affection and love that they end up securely attached, and calmness and seeing a relationship that worked, etc. So those people, they can weather ups and downs and sex drive, ups and downs and emotional closeness, lots of medical issues, problems with children, all these different stressors, because they don't blame the other person, they're not codependent with the other person, and they're not pathologically independent. So they have empathy and grace for their partner, and then that's usually given back, right? If somebody gives you empathy and grace, you want to give them back empathy and grace. Adolfo says, do I do private therapy sessions? Yes, of course. You think I just sit here and talk on this thing all day? I see. I'm actually going into session soon. But yes, I do therapy. I do coaching. Reach out to info@bestlifebehavioralhealth.com. I also have 9 people who work for me, therapists and coaches. They're great. I just hired another one, literally. I have not even put out her info yet, but you heard it here first. She works in Illinois, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Kansas, and she does coaching, relationship coaching, couples. She's great. Paula Pate. I'm going to be showing that later, but you heard it here first. We do not accept insurance. We're out of network, but we provide a super bill, which you can submit if you have out of network benefits, Adolfo. And coaching, which is honestly equally as good for most relationship issues in my experience, which is why I hired coaches. That is not applicable. You cannot use an HSA or submit that for reimbursement, because coaching, you don't get a diagnosis and it's not considered health care. But yeah, you can ask all those questions by emailing info@bestlifebehavioralhealth.com, or Samantha@drpsychmom.com, so you could reach out to work with me or anybody else. And it's really important, honestly, that people do not make these errors in thinking like, oh, like I'm avoidant and I'm going to be avoidant forever, or I'm preoccupied, I'm going to be preoccupied forever. First of all, as I just said, you switch to the different one if something happens frequently, but you don't want that different insecure attachment. You want to get to secure. Therapy helps people almost, I always use the analogy, come out of Plato's cave. When you're insecurely attached, you're like you're in Plato's cave, you think the shadows are reality. You think that this fighting, push, pull, difficult dynamic is what a relationship is supposed to be, and it isn't. And then when you're actually working on yourself and you're seeing the links between how you were raised and what you expect in relationships, etc., you start to be like, oh my God, this was all very dysfunctional and I played my part and I want to be in a healthy relationship. So that's when couples counseling can come in. So often one person does individual and then the couple starts couples, because the avoidant, let's say, is working on himself, or the preoccupied working on herself or himself, whatever, and then the relationship is no longer sustainable the way that it is. It starts to seem too dysfunctional. So then the person moves over with the spouse to couples counseling. And then a lot of the time, the spouse will, then a lot of the time the spouse will start their own individual therapy, because they're a little late to the party, right? Because their spouse already changed. And so they're trying to do the same push-pull, the same like passive-aggressive remark or silent treatment, or like leave hints that the other person doesn't know, or actively insult or yell or scream, and the other person's not doing it. They're not taking the bait. And that's when the relationship really is at risk. You know, it was never a happy relationship with insecurely attached people. It can seem that way when you're younger, you got more shit going on, but there's always these elephant in the room of we don't actually deeply connect. I don't think we empathize with each other fully. It's different than lack of attraction. You can be very attracted to somebody and be in an insecurely attached relationship, right? But what you know in your heart is, oh, I don't really, this relationship, I would not want somebody to see a videotape of this damn relationship. That's what you feel. That's the elephant in the room. This crazy stuff, these fights that we have, these silences, the fact that I don't really think she is that into me, like I always feel like I'm annoying them, or I am the one who's always trying to get away, like whatever your role is, that's the elephant in the room. So securely attached couples don't have an elephant in the room. Their fights, when they fight, or their arguments, or their discussions, or their anything, their cuddling at night, or their talks, or their walks, any of that shit could be videotaped. If you ever need a way to think, is this relationship really functional? Think about whether you would feel comfortable with somebody at your work or one of your kids' friends' parents seeing a videotape of like a full week of your relationship. Or would you be uncomfortable and embarrassed, you know? Because that's kind of like a little way to see, to normalize, fact check, like, is this relationship comfortable or not? Healthy or not, rather. All right, anybody have any other questions? I see 8 of you watching. If you could send your likes, that would be great. Likes, comments. You could tell me where you're from. You could ask questions about attachment or anything else. If you want more engagement with me, you can join, and other people, you could join my secret group. I have posted about that. It's the blue subscribe button. It's $4.99 a month. Keep in mind, you have to have a real profile and a real profile picture. And it's for actual engagement between human beings. So it can't be a burner account or anything like that, or no profile picture. It has to be people looking, talking kind of as face-to-face as you can. Not a therapy group, it's a peer group. Rob says, question regarding boundary setting versus manipulation. Wife has an alcohol use disorder. Her best friend used to like to come over and drink with my wife. Friend is also an alcoholic. It's a friend. Friend's not the problem, man. Your wife's an alcoholic. I don't even have to read the rest of this. Your wife is an alcoholic. That's the problem. This stuff with the friend is a distraction. We're using a violin on the deck of the Titanic while it sinks. Your wife is the Titanic. The relationship is the Titanic. The friend is the violin. But I'll continue reading. Friend would get drunk and drive home. I've put a boundary in place that if friend comes over and drinks, she needs a sober ride home, or I will call cops on her for drunk driving. My wife, this friend is, forget this friend. friend is over. You need to get your wife in, like, let her do her friend, not do her friend. You and your wife are the people who shouldn't be in the same house. Your wife has an alcohol use problem, right? You are enabling her. You're using friend here as a scapegoat. You can't assert anything. You feel that you can't make your wife stop drinking, and you may be right. So instead, you're trying. The friend is just like a proxy variable. She's like a straw man. This friend. It's like the friend is not the issue. I hope you don't have kids in this environment. If you do, then you have all of the. You gotta really use that. You gotta say, I do not want our children around this. You got to get into treatment. You got to get into treatment. You're an alcoholic. A lot of people won't use that word. You know. They won't. They'll say, oh, you drink a little too much. And then the next day they ignore the hangover. Maybe they make a couple pointed jabs. Some guys honestly even let it go because it's the only time when they get laid. And I have a podcast about that. Do you ignore your wife's drinking because it's the only time you get laid? But if your wife has an alcohol use disorder, you need to be in therapy, discussing with your therapist what to do about it, when to get out of it, how to set boundaries. The friend is a non-thing. The friend is just what you are. You're trying to control something in this situation, and the friend is not where it's at. But you know, it's a good question, very representative for a lot of people. Maybe somebody can have an epiphany. Wow, is what I'm really mad about what I'm really mad about, or am I mad about the dysfunction in my actual partner? I always say that about in-laws. In-laws from hell are not the problem. It is how your partner feels about them, sets boundaries or doesn't, how you're able to talk about them, etc. It's about your partner in that situation. It's about your partner here, Rob. It's not about this friend. All right, any other questions? It's way better when y'all interact and ask questions. That's so much more fun. And as I was saying before this question, which was a good question, again, if you don't want to ask questions publicly, but you cannot or do not want to do a session individually, I don't direct message, but you can certainly join the secret group and post a thread about it. And as I just said, that's for, you know, people with their main profile picture. It's a private group, so nobody except the people in the group can see things that you post. But it can't be a burner account because people are actually sharing their stuff. So we want to promote a spirit of genuine and authentic engagement and interaction. The same reason why I never had the anonymous posting feature, and a lot of the groups that I'm in are turning it off. Because people will say anything when they're anonymous. They will be rude, they will be harassing, etc. But when you see their face, even just a picture of their face, they act different. It's psychology, you know. Anthony says, what about when two long-term married has very opposite thoughts on money and such? Well, I mean, that's a big question. I know absolutely nothing about it, but couples therapy often talks about financial issues. That could be a good way to get into couples counseling, and money is a huge one that people talk about. In-laws for younger people, parenting and adult children for older people, sex, obviously. And all of it comes down to feeling loved and respected by your partner. You know, so if you do feel loved and respected by your partner, people have a lot more flexibility on how they spend money and how they think about it than if they don't. None of these issues that people think are the issue, like it's like, it's not the issue. You know, what's the issue is, do you feel loved and respected by your partner? Do you have the same values? Like, do you feel at home and compatible with your partner? Because if not, then like anything is going to be the issue. Like that meme, like, look at that bitch eating crackers like she owns the place. I love that meme because it's classic. If you don't like somebody, if you don't feel loved by them, respected, if you don't love and respect them, anything they do, including eating crackers, is going to annoy you and make you think of them worse, right? Whereas if you love and respect and feel close, then almost anything the person does, you can find a positive spin on it because you empathize with them and you understand them. So, you know, good question, good way to get into couples counseling. If you tell her you're getting in to discuss money issues, cool. You know, maybe that's an easier one than whatever other issues that you have, you know. Anywho, any other questions, guys? 8 people watching, please send your likes, your loves, and all of that. And we do have Heather's group coming up, by the way, the Rekindling Intimacy. That's going to be starting later in February. Reach out and ask us about that. Info at Best Life Behavioral Health. We have lots of stuff always going on. We have individual coaching. We have those groups. I have my Avoidant Attachment Seminar, which y'all missed. But then the next one is going to be, it's going to be on ADHD husbands and anxious wives. That's like a common pairing that I see. So I'm going to do something on that. But you can email me to get on the wait list for that. I usually cap these. I'm going to see if 10 is too small or if I can go up for the next seminar to like 15 or 20. Obviously, you see, I speak quickly and I am good at, fielding questions. But in this first seminar that I did, I wanted to make sure, so I made it 75 minutes and I capped it at 10 people, I believe. So in future ones, it'll probably be like 60 minutes and more people, but I don't know. Maybe it'll still be 75. All right, anybody else have a question, especially about the original topic of attachment, or really could be anything? Any question? Valentine's Day is coming up, so y'all should buy all of our awesome sex workshops done by Heather, our sexologist, Blow His Mind, Look It Right, Partner's Guide to Female Pleasure. All of those things are available on the Best Life Behavioral Health website, and if you scroll down my page, like I mention these things all the time. You could always also direct message me for a link to any of this stuff. We have lots and lots of resources. And of course, there's my podcast, The Dr. Psych Mom Show, where I have an episode on oral sex too, and I have an episode on all sorts of stuff. So definitely y'all should be listening to that. I mean, I don't listen to podcasts, but people tend to like podcasts. So I'll stay for one more question. Who has one more question, topic suggestion, or anything about anything? What do we talk about in the group? We talk about relationships, parenting, career, self, whatever. So, all the stuff that I write about on my site. And I'm on Substack now, guys. So if any of you are on Substack, you should follow me there. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on everything. Anytime there's a social media, I go on the social media because I have so much content from 10 plus years of writing. So I have so many topics. In my secret group, whenever anybody has a question, I'll link to something that I've written. Or that a podcast episode, they're like, oh my God, you have episodes on everything. You have posts on everything. Yeah, well, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in practice 15 years and I've been writing these things for 10 years. And I've been doing my podcast for, I think, 2 years. And it's like a lot of content. So, if you cannot afford therapy or coaching, even if you can't afford to do my subscriber episodes or the group or anything, I have so much free content. It's like a vast repository of free content going back to 2014. So you should definitely make use of that stuff, as a DIY kind of self-improvement project. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This was a fun live. And again, join my group, reach out for therapy or coaching at bestlifebehavioralhealth.com. You could always message me through Messenger as well, through, the message to the Dr. Psych Mom page. And I'll talk to everybody soon. Have a great day, guys.